Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Vitalogy because we're back the second time.
Yep.
I guess I don't need to delete the old version, but this is our second take.
It is our second. I don't need to repeat it because the people that they don't probably want to hear our intro again.
And so we don't really need to do that, but we still may be having issues. We were told that we're having connectivity in the heat.
Or COVID.
Or Gavin Newsom.
I feel like our fair game for any
fair
issues.
Game, right? And it works.
Yes.
It is showing that we are having some issues, and so you guys, we are excited to be back together. We're excited to talk through this service and to get you gone on here. But if this is, would you please just comment in the feeds? Would you know if you're hearing us, if you're seeing us, if things are blowing? That would help us a lot.
It would.
Because maybe it's the equipment has been sitting and has gotten so dusty because it has been a couple months.
That's it.
It could be it. Now outdated or something like that. Been far too long. I know. It has been soon. May was hit or miss. We've gone from our fourth season, First Corinthians, to an entire series that we've
Proverbs.
Right?
We didn't get Vitalogy about Proverbs at all.
Entire book of Proverbs.
Okay.
Here. We didn't get to do that, and now we're back in season 5. Is that right?
Or was starting season 5 this Sunday?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Man,
finished up season 4 last week. And then we hear it this week.
In fact, there was 2 seasons, really, series. There was a Proverbs series, and then Esteban Casa.
Yes.
That was so good.
Good.
Man,
so good.
It would have been great to have him come on here and talk about this stuff. But I know, just a wild season. It has been going on. We are like we're saying, fall launched. We are in the middle of launching.
It's another kickoff night for us here.
Prayer tonight. So if you're catching this and you still have time to make it out at 6:30 on Wednesday night. Always have something. The first Wednesday of every month is prayer
and
food. Now I know, but prayer also.
Yeah.
Starting to get open back up. Wednesday of the month, we're gonna try to bring more and more of that.
Love it
to things and some meal together.
Yeah. It'll be warm. That's okay.
The air conditioning works really well although it may not in this room.
Creeping up.
It is a little bit. It is. It's all the energy.
Yeah.
From these microphones right now. I don't know.
That's right.
That's right. That's what it is. It is indeed. Okay. There's this summer. You were just.
Yeah, I was teaching up in Cannon Beach, Oregon. Was there for a week. Had just a great time in Minnesota. Coast is not a bad place to be. It's late August. It was just gorgeous. It was like 70 to 73 each day, and just beautiful.
Water?
No, you don't. Water.
You don't.
In Oregon.
You need like a. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And one of the cool things about it is oftentimes people don't know each other at the beginning of the week, and then there's just a really cool community of people that forms throughout the week. And my friend Carolyn there, so I got the chance to hang out with her, so it was just a great time.
Yeah. And now talk to you about this at all, but I do know spoke to
today And then one day they threw in a third,
Just
just
because.
men's breakfast. It's like there's a bunch of other. Sure that people would love for your but anyway. No, twice a day, and so you sort of feel like, did you go back to your room and try to get the next one in your head?
I'm
And
sure,
then you
yeah.
repeat
Because it only
for 6 days.
because even like it doesn't really matter how much you've prepared, written out, but you still have to
Gotta get it in your
enough.
heart to preach it,
Yes.
right? Want to read,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
those are two very,
Yes.
and especially with the way that we not, I mean, my messages.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
As
Oh, here
you-
we go.
All right.
Whoa,
so
the inside.
There you go. But I don't read.
Exactly.
I usually am about what was what I meant to say.
Yes, yes.
That 20% is like, did not plan.
Yes.
So-
I'm sure there's certain messages with it, read a little bit more clearly.
Oh yeah,
Just to get things
and
right.
even sections of a message were all sort of tag it in my mind, like that section.
Aha. Don't mess this up. Right?
Don't go.
Yes. Don't
Yeah, don't.
right.
No,
'Cause
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
difference.
That's good for the.
It is.
But
We can kind of explore. That's what this is for.
yeah, there was one in the message Sunday at the 10:45 service.
Yeah.
I won't say where, but there was one point where I went off script. Yeah, I think that was a lot.
The reason I spent hours writing it is actually
there it is.
yeah, yeah.
No,
I'm sure. So good. No.
one of those. So I started my sermon off with a illustration
Yeah.
of communion on the moon.
On the moon, right?
And
So cool.
Buzz Aldrin at one Aldrich point.
There you go.
And so I Buzz Aldrich during the message.
For most of-
Dang it.
Oh man,
I only had a few people tell me afterwards,
Okay, good.
but none before the 10:45. So I said it. I think I said it at 9. Maybe I
would-
didn't.
9 folks to catch
They would
that
have. You're right.
a little
They
bit
would have.
easier. So let me say
I didn't.
that you act.
It feel
stuck in your
better.
head.
That makes me feel better.
No, there's been times when I've been telling a story I've been telling a story about Abraham, and I'll just somehow comes in, and I'll just as if it was Moses. Doesn't make sense. And those
No,
names,
they're not.
by any means, I've been told this, but I've been told I've gone the whole sermon like that, and it's the wrong name. And I know it. It's just I know it's not Moses. That's what at least, and that is one of the nice things about high school. First, they're not paying attention. No,
Yeah.
no. So Beth is the one who will tell me, like, Josh, that was Moses the whole
The
time.
whole
And I'm
time.
like, no, I'm like appalled at myself.
Was it last year? I said that a woman got on a bus and to Detroit,
This is right. Yeah.
and everyone
From
and
Michigan
I'm like, what? Why is everybody?
to Detroit.
Why are the vibe such that you
Yeah.
have major questions?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it took a couple. They were doing that, right? Or
Yeah.
cause,
Yes.
because those are
All
two,
of a sudden,
those
it
are
hit
2
me.
words. In
Again.
real places. It just so happens that one of them is, and you can't add one to the other. No, those are tricky concepts. Well, it's interesting that. Okay, I don't know how this relates. You know that when you're driving a car and doing math at the same time, if you're trying to do math, messes up your driving.
Really?
Now
Yes.
and you can,
Math.
but for some reason, math is you're doing. So, there's got to be some I don't know what
simple addition,
I- you
subtraction,
know-
or are we talking about like
I'm guessing
X's
long
and
form calculus. No,
Y's and
no, I don't know the level. What I've been told
okay.
is something about driving. You're always calculating like things like that you're not actually thinking about.
Interesting. I'll have to try that.
Don't do it with kids in the car or with anyone around. All right. So,
Yes.
no,
That's funny.
all right. So I'm guessing there's something going on there. You know, you get stuck on words.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Buzz all, you know,
yeah.
tomato.
Exactly.
Really.
The funny thing, because far out in a message, you're kind of in the moment, but you're also thinking next, and
Yeah.
there's a number of things going on in your head at the same time. So it's easy to make some of those.
It is.
But
And I did.
You a letter.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is Buzz with us anymore? Is he?
That's Aldrin.
Is Buzz? Yeah, I know. I know. That's why I said it. Because someone
Buzz
will be, with us anymore, really?
Google it, but
yeah, cool story. That
he
is
was
really
a little
impressive.
bit bitter anyway about
Is
the
it?
fact that the first one. So, actually, the fact that I messed up his name, he probably would get pretty angry about that. Strong.
No.
Anyway,
but that was.
Thank you for bringing that full circle.
Thank you. You know, that's a
Union was the
great.
first meal on the moon.
Yes,
It was.
that's impressive.
Yeah, and little known, badly known. Why didn't they? Right, and so there wasn't air coverage of it during Apollo 8. They read through versus like 1 through. It wasn't the whole chapter, I don't think.
Okay.
But it was a section, and it was read from space with, and it was like
yeah.
I believe you can Google it. But NASA got sued, and reading scripture and event, and we should be more pluralistic. All those reasons. So when Buzz went, but let's just call him Buzz, went to NASA to ask if he could receive communion on the moon. Yes, but we can do it, but it's just sort of between you and the Lord.
Mr. Aldrich, you can. Just kidding.
That.
Yeah, that.
So that's why it wasn't televised. Not a lot of pictures. He did get the elements commissioned officially from his. They have sacrament.
Wow.
And so then he celebrated on the moon.
Wow. What those are statements about these. I mean, fully immersed in like worldview, if you would, right? I mean, like these are scientists. I mean, an astronaut, pilot.
Yeah.
Or scientists.
Oh yeah, no, they're brilliant
minds, right? And the best thing they can think. This comment is Genesis, is Scripture, and then the first meal. That's a beautiful so statement.
Cool.
That is cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
The cosmonaut Yuri, I believe, is the first man to right. So him saying afterwards, I've been to space and I didn't see God or something. Yeah, some elusive in Russian, as if to like mock God somehow. But that was planted by the state, that he was actually a devout believer. That was not his words.
Wow.
They might have forced him to say it if he did say it at all. or it was or quoted for him.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was actually a pretty. All these people, it's like you can't really experience the one out like understanding who God. That's powerful.
That awe, it has a transcendent sort of allure to it, doesn't it? It just calls us to something deeper, something more.
Absolutely. I think that was a great way to start this. This is like the most, and yet you pointed out that it's such a little meal, right?
Yeah, I mean, we would be hard pressed to call it a meal in any other context,
right?
You know,
Yeah,
snack maybe, that's generous.
I've often wondered, call it because one of the terms, of course, is
Upper.
and invited to someone, and then, right, we're gonna have the Lord. This is gonna be the Lord's Supper. I'm expecting a meal, man. I'm expecting like a feast.
Well, it turns out in Corinth,
that no, seems like it was more than a
for a lot of people, it was way more.
Way more. Some of the words for it, they call
A love feast.
Right?
I mean, there's enough wine that people are getting drunk. There's enough food that people are gourting themselves and making those that don't have for financial purposes or just they couldn't get it there bad. And so I all of the history track down like how when things specifically change. But I do think that some of what Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 11 lays the foundation for this being more symbolic of a meal, a literal meal. It was a whole meal. Luck. But Paul says something to the effect of, when you come together to eat, wait for one another. If anyone is hungry, let him eat at home.
Yeah.
And so I think there's applying that more widely. I think in result, the love feast became less of a symbolic remembrance meal. Yeah.
That's interesting. Even that phrase right there. I grew up attending a lot. Not, it wasn't my church, but I attended an Armenian Orthodox church a lot.
Okay.
You would have to fast before on or the priests actually do every day before they take the Eucharist, right? They take it on an empty stomach. And so that was always complaining, and myself complaining, of course, that you can't eat before you partake. So so that they actually tell them just eat. Yeah,
ravenous table.
But what you're saying about the traditions about communion have been instituted to know exactly where that happened in the history of the faith, right?
Well, and very few things have been as divisive. Ironically, meal that is meant, and it says together, come together.
Yes.
And it's not just that you come together, it's that you're brought together by eating it. There's this whole play on words that's going on there, but because it unifies us around what I would say are sort of the fundamentally important to us. The shared story, shared. What did I talk about on Sunday? It's a long time ago. Why can't you remember, Josh? Shared examination and then a shared future.
That's right.
So, so it not only brings us together in proximity, it unites our hearts together and so that was the intention of them. Pretty divisive
because everybody's into this of exactly what it means, of what this is my body, right?
Yes,
right. This,
that's the key phrase.
I mean, and so that right there has caused a lot. Let me think here. It seems for the most similar in. No, there's not. I was trying to think of what there's differences in, like, even what the bread looks like, feels like, tastes like, what the juice is. Is it actually wine,
Right.
or is it blood? Exactly. Come on,
that was on the cutting room table.
Yeah, you could there.
Right. So, and I would have loved to, because fascinating. But the Catholic doctrine of communion is called transubstantiation. This became the official view of the Catholic in roughly 1215.
Got it.
And so I don't know exactly what it was before then, but this is when it officially became transubstantiation. And by that, they mean they read Jesus very literally. This is my body.
Yeah.
This is my blood.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so they would believe that the bread becomes the body, the juice becomes the blood, and they are in blood. Right. Eating
Yep.
it.
This is actually, there are places in Europe, especially churches, where there are holes on the ground that are blocked off. And that's because the wine of communion had been spilled.
Oh.
And once it's spilled, that's there.
Okay.
And so that blood makes that space holy.
Holy. Wow.
And so they have to, like, section it off and make sure that you don't actually walk there anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
For
now,
how long? Ever?
It was still, I think the spill happened a while ago. I don't. It's also why, like, in Catholic churches, in Orthodox churches, all these have, I think the Orthodox, they tweet, I don't know exactly how, but it's consecrated. Okay, right? So they in this process, they have a beautiful, it's actually a beautiful kind of ceremony consecrating the what and what was wine, and they believe somehow it becomes the body and blood. Comes that they have to eat it or drink. You'll see priests will kind of get the rest of the wine, and then they'll chug it right before doing. Sorry, I shouldn't joke, but it is true. But it is true, right? Yeah, and if there's not a big, that's a lot of wine.
That is. It could be.
They use the strong stuff.
Yeah, they do,
because it's got to stay clean.
Yes,
because it's a shared cup. Now they've they know what it is.
Yeah,
because typically it's a shared cup that they. But now I think they went to, like,
intinction.
There you go. That's a new one. That's big.
Okay, so you have the Catholic doctrine,
Yeah.
right? And Martin Luther, Roman Catholic Church. Communion was one of those things, or Eucharist was one of those things, agreements on. And so the bread does not, juice does not become the blood, but that substantiation. So he is with bread and with the wine in a very real way. And so it doesn't become it, but he's with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As you keep moving down, you had Zwingli, that was more along the lines of just memorial. So this is also in there, remembrance of that. One of the reasons that we remember. And so Zwingli, person that founded that, and he's so fight it a little bit, but also some would argue maybe went too far. Like it's not remembrance. Is that, or is there something more? that earlier in 1 Corinthians 10, he says, the cup of is it not participation in the bread that we break? Is it not participation in the body of Christ? So I think that in first groundwork for us to say, but it's also more than that. It's also, which leads to Calvin's view of what they called real presence, that it's not really Jesus. It's not really becoming Jesus's body and blood, and it's not really Jesus that's right alongside of it in a sense. Concepts, real presence would say that Jesus meets us at the table in a very real ways that us in other places. And so I tend to like that view. Preserve some of the mystery around sacrament, ritual, ordinance, whatever we want to call it, that certainly is embedded within the text, right? Like it's in that people, because they took the Lord's Supper, right? There's some, and maybe is bigger. Presence view seems to honor both this is about remembrance, and yet there's in a unique way. If we participate.
Yeah, I love that. I've often thought of it as this, as really a step of faith in itself, right? That it's not the step of faith, it's one thing that you have to, but it's stepping into the story in a sense. You know, this was given for me. I'm going to like consume it, like make it a part of me, right? There's so much symbolism in there that I'm going to take in Jesus,
right,
in his blood. And so in some sense is the way you come about it affects, right? I don't want to say it's just that.
No,
It's definitely, there's definitely more to it. And it gets at the fact that, I think they were all trying to something spiritual in terms of the physical ways that they knew. People talk about this as like Platonic. So like the soul or the form of Jesus. Like that Jesus is actually there in it, like the molecular composition of the wine, right? But that is there somehow. And I think, that's that's potentially possible. At the same time, I think it's put it into it's trying to put it in something in terms we can understand when it's inherently and mysterious. And it's what fully figure out,
No. This quote that I used was I think so Chris Gertz says, there are a few things I understand as much as sort of do cognitive pieces of this like shared story, sacrifice, examination, future. I can wrap my mind around that to a certain extent, but there is something mysterious and spiritual that happens at the table. I think one of my biggest laments has been Walmart prepackaged communion elements, right? But I love people communion. So even faith before, it wasn't my favorite. You just pass it down the row, and sometimes people would say the body of Christ given for you. The time it's like, here you go. Totally. But I think as pastors, and this priest do this, but is so union, and then to receive somebody. There's just something beautiful about that. And logistically, with as many people as we have in our services and and then back out and all that, couldn't do it. But I don't know, is
Totally.
deeply compelling
Totally.
and
No, I'm with you. And
just better. It just is.
yeah. And it seems like even, I mean, it's mentioned that Jesus broke bread, right? The king to me. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
He broke the cellophane seal.
So I still regret this because one time it was one of the earlier sermons that I was preaching in the room, and I got to the part serving it, and I had everyone's attention, and then I said, "And Jesus, in like manner, peeled off his thing." Why did I say that? I mean, everybody laughed. It was, dang it. I'm like, Josh, this is not the time. Moment. I felt, yeah, I was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, you idiot. Why did you say that? And yeah, let's be back in the moment. And yet, that's not, of course, what it is. There's something beautiful about the bread. And I mean, and more like a matzah bread, like unleavened bread, but off out of a there's something about that tactileness of it.
There is.
That kind of, it just reminds you that Jesus's body was broken, and that's a powerful illustration.
Yeah,
and just the wetness of the blood, right, and of the juice. Whereas those little cups just don't do it justice. No, I know. Yeah. Hopefully we can. Hopefully, no, I don't know if it ever will.
I hope we do. Not with our whole, as we do other venues where we can actually communion.
Yeah,
I think that there's something to be said for that.
Well, it's such a great illustration, and you just briefly mentioned the priesthood of all believers. That idea, because that contentious parts about communion is that it can only be served by and even the fact was Aldrin needed to have it consecrated, right? Or is that the word that they use?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. More or less.
It just had to be made special by a priest for it to be official, right? One of those areas that we would say no, that's not necessary, but people misunderstand a little bit about that concept, that the priest doesn't necessarily say anything about more important. It's about what I can serve. Was not so that I can talk to God, so that I can serve,
right?
As in some ways,
bridge builders, right?
It is,
yeah,
and it's serving. Love that even is tied into serving people, right? That is the priestly act is in the serving, not necessarily in these elements that are going on, right?
Yeah. Well, and some of my favorite communion services have been where you would go up and receive communion, and the people and you'd turn around behind you. Keep going like that. There's just a beautiful picture. I just remembered I read our time to talk about a book, but
that's all right.
This summer I read a book by posthumous written by and filed all these writings. It was called Falling, and it was his interest in the floats, which were a circus but they were trapeze artists, and fast
Not heard about this.
Fascinating book. Strange. I mean, it's
You
just
don't
gonna.
say.
So he had an obsession with the Flying Rodleys. With them for a time.
Henry.
Thought about, joining if he could. All sorts of things like that. Anyway, the book is about that what he watching them. Their portion of his observation, talking to the catcher, and he said he's talking to the flyer,
Okay.
and lets go of the bar, flies through the air, and is caught by the catcher. And he says, like, so what is your job? Like, what do you try to do? Nothing. You for the catcher has to be wholly in the catcher. You just have to wait. So it's a beautiful picture of faith. Anyway, so he's writing peas, all, and then he's talking about communion.
Mhm.
And he said, at the table, what I recognized is that Jesus was the flyer. And at the communion table, he was flying toward, I had to decide if I was going to leave.
Oh my
If
God.
I not to make sure that he didn't fall,
Yeah.
right? But
yeah.
that he himself vulnerable,
Yes.
and that to receive his body, but he's the one flying through space and time
Totally.
to us at the table.
Wow.
It was like, oh, just have to today.
Seriously.
So it was so good.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a fabulous.
Didn't bring it up in the sermon because honestly,
It just
I didn't have time anyway. So.
no. Well, yeah, but that is a powerful picture. I mean, Jesus is.
Yeah.
He's given us need. The illustration has nothing strength you need to hold on to him or anything like. It's to be able to receive him. Right. To be there when he's available.
Yes.
Even it is this unique. When together, everybody in a state of like contempt, thinking about their life, sins, and that's a unique spot where Jesus is there,
right?
I mean, there's no of those moments available and flying through.
Isn't that a good picture?
And
it was a fun.
Remember that. Well, this is the meal. This is another meal.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Passover.
There's a bunch of things going on.
It sort of hit me. That's a bowl. And I don't know why it had never as it did studying it this time. I think I even wrote in my notes, Jesus hijacked a old tradition and made it about himself. That you can only do that if you're God, right? Otherwise, that doesn't go well.
Yes.
But bold move for generations. And right. Yep. He goes, this is what it was all pointing.
This struck me when I was just a few months ago, because we were talking about it being, and we were even about the sacrificial system, and around that time, meat was everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Because there was animals everywhere, blood everywhere. In fact, even today, if you go, they still do a Passover type. It's not Passover, but they have some traditions. I can't remember the name of it right now, but thousands of animals are killed in one place, and so there'll be one
it's hard to
day
imagine.
where there's exactly where there's tons of animals, and then the next day where it's crazy. And this would have been very similar. The amount of happening.
Stark, or one of those historians that writes about more about the early church, but the way that those even all that death smelled,
Oh yeah,
the blood that was
Yes.
animals. I mean, just
Yeah.
hard to believe.
Yes, and that it struck me that Jesus, and he replaces it with a vegetarian meal. Death.
That's true.
Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
it doesn't, nothing dies
right
to make it happen.
That part of the meal.
Right? I mean, now,
Yeah.
and all that to say, of course, the reason that that's important is not because it's because
Owen?
no, you'll like this. He died once and for all. We
Right.
know need to have a death in order to,
Yep.
and that's why it's one of the reasons why it's one of those beautiful, amazing meals.
Yes.
Right. And if it's signifying that Jesus, right, no more death is necessary to accomplish what God wants to do in us.
Love it. Yep. It's a beautiful thing, which is for you.
Exactly.
Right. My blood that's for you.
Mm-hmm.
Both times he says it. Yeah. The whole the way that worked.
Yeah.
And then the different things that are the different accounts, you go and place it, right?
Totally.
The disciples' feet, that there was always a time where the host washed the guests' hands.
Yep.
The breaking of the bread, and that there was a time bread during the meal, they'd pass it all around, and then they would eat the whole meal proper. So even when it says, and after the cup, they're not talking about he broke. They're talking about the lamb. They're talking about the whole Passover meal that they've celebrated. And even that thirst right after eating the meal proper, you cup. And it all just, and you go, oh my goodness, how poetic.
No.
Yeah.
I know.
But it was a bold move to take a over 1,000-year-old feast that your aunts had been practicing and that marked the most important day in their history. And I don't know, like, what is the day that marks the most important day in our history? Maybe 4th of July or something?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
Right? It really is the day that, like, people became a nation in, right? Like, they're freed from slavery in Egypt. They get to worship God as king freely.
Yeah.
And that's what they're celebrating. And and Jesus goes, actually, this is about me.
And that the statement of what he's saying, you thought that you found freedom, through all, you thought you found freedom from slavery, which kind of, was, they got from there right into the event. Took a little longer once they got there,
decades.
but that was their release. And now what he's saying is, oh no, that wasn't fully it.
Right.
This is, all those things were pointing to this. Now this fulfills all of it. Now you can find truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, this being this meal he knows so, something like that. It's a good reminder that in the meal, you're not just contemplating what what the elements are, those kind of things. You're contemplating what's behind it, right? About what Jesus has done for us, and that's why it became this beautiful thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, it's also this beautiful thing that you get to step into and live into a little something. Participate. That's the word. Yeah. Love it. And so, man, I hope for all of us, it's more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can't wait to participate again.
I know.
Well, man, thanks for into this and the study there. I thought you did it all together. I had told you earlier, I don't think you did.
I didn't have
fit
time.
it in.
It just went
was
long,
but I'm glad you
what
did
can
it.
you do?
But that's the thing about we can keep going, and it is great, and I appreciate this that they're on. Like I heard many people say, like, I didn't realize the connection there. And I'm sure there's a whole talk on that, right? Or we could do a Passover Seder and actually do that.
That would be
really need to do that.
That'd be good.
I know. So stay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for. Or if you found us on the podcast, thank you. And we're gonna do our best to keep doing this a bit more regular and you can ask questions. So we'd love it when you in the feed here, or you can send questions beforehand at efcc.org.
Yeah. Next week we start a spirit.
Yeah, no questions about that.
No, that's gonna be great.
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
Yeah. You're not expecting any.
Oh,
right? It's just
question. I have a lot of. Yeah, just we'll talk about them together.
Into controversial issues.
Listen,
you can't avoid it.
Yeah,
that we're doing 1 Corinthians, and there's so much in there that we need to hear about.
Yeah.
So
well, and even okay,
come on.
But you to be uninformed about this, and so this is just my short little. I think oftentimes we assume that when we become Spirit comes to live in us, which He does, and that we automatically know how to interact with the Spirit, what to expect from the Paul. No, you can in you formed, and that prevent you from walking in the fullness of what God would have. Brothers and sisters, I do not want you to be uninformed.
Exactly.
So let's learn together,
man. If you're formed, you're not able to into His image. Oh,
formed, you're underformed.
Right.
Why don't you close
Okay.
this out?
All right. We can close about later today. I'm gonna claim.
You're gonna get
all right.
At least have credit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.